Hey there, and welcome to Goddess on the Rise. I am your host, Sarah Berg, and this podcast is all about empowering women, living in your truth, loving your body as it is in your journey to self-love. You can find this podcast to be real, raw, authentic, and truth. So buckle up, girlfriend, because we are going for a ride. Hey there, Sarah Berg here, your host of today's episode of Goddess on the Rise. I am so excited to introduce to you guys a very special guest we're having on the show today. Her name is Alexis Taryn. She is from Washington and is currently living in Iowa. She runs a dance studio there. She runs some amazing yoga classes and also a Mindful Mamas Facebook blog. So I'm just super excited to sit down with her and really kind of pick her brain about yoga, how it's helped her and how it's healed her, and talk about how it can help you and heal other people. So today's podcast, we do talk a little bit about trauma, and there could be some triggers in there. So please listen with caution. I just really hope you guys enjoy this episode. Alexis has been a great friend of mine for a few years now. We are big fans of each other, and you'll be able to hear about that in this podcast. It's such a great episode, and Alexis drops some really great information for you. So make sure you tune in. Check today's show notes so that way you can find out how to be in touch with Alexis and find out where you can attend one of her yoga classes and the times. So that will be in today's show notes, and I just really hope you enjoy this episode. Thanks for listening, guys, and without further ado, here is the interview. All right, so today we have a very special guest, one of my near and dear friends, Miss Alexis, and Miss Alexis and me met through Facebook. Kind of a funny story. Well, what I remember of it, maybe you can kind of correct me a little bit, but I think I was in Iowa at the time, or I was moving to Washington, and you were moving from Washington to Iowa, or maybe you had already made that move. Mm-hmm. And somehow we got connected on Facebook, and I admired this girl from afar. I thought she was the coolest person ever because she was such a cute little yogi, and I was so jealous. And you were so cute. I loved everything you were posting and like what you were about. One of the big things about Alexis is that she's very mindful of what she posts on Facebook. She teaches yoga, which is one of the things she's going to be sharing with us today. We're super excited about. And I finally met Alexis in person, and I've taken many of her yoga classes, and I'm just kind of obsessed with her. So
the feeling is so mutual.
And I love it. I love it. We're definitely each other's cheerleaders, which is super fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yeah, that sounds right with my timeline from what I remember. I remember you just got certified to do group classes.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was like, this girl's out there doing group classes. Like, that was like my first like healthy competition. I was like, I should do group classes. Like, yeah, I could do that. Gosh. Yeah, I never told you that.
That is so funny.
And what's so cool about the present day is that you still are doing that. And I'm still just like, oh, she can do that. Well, I can do that too. Like,
yes,
we can all do that kind of stuff. So I appreciate that about you. Yeah,
That's
you're
so
doing your
cool.
thing, and that's so inspiring. So
I love it. And, like that saying that there's room for everybody at the top,
yes.
And
Oh,
it's so
yeah.
true. Like, I like how you said it was friendly competition, because I've never felt like I've had to compete with you, like, in a bad way, like it's both of us just rooting each other on. Like, I
Well,
feel like we could be
and
doing the same thing, and we would still both be
yes.
like, oh my God, you should go to her class. Oh my God, you should go to her class, type of thing,
Yes. And that's what I've been loving about, like, the more that I meet people who are into the same stuff we're into, is that
Yeah.
everybody has their own, like, lens on it, and everybody has their own kind
Yeah.
of thing. And what might work for me might work for somebody else, might not work for somebody else. So everybody
Right.
has, and the more that we all do what we're, like, feel most called to do, that just only serves the population so much. Like, it's so amazing. So
couldn't agree
yeah,
more. I
love
love
it.
that. And
Love
I
this
feel
stuff.
like, just kind of spiraling on that a little bit, but like, say like we both do the same thing. Say that we both had taught a yoga class in Iowa, same town, everything. Yeah. My yoga class could serve one person, your yoga class would serve another. Like, it's I just talked about this on an interview with one of my other girlfriends. We were both health and fitness coaches, but like, if I could help someone better than she could help someone, and vice versa, we'd send each other clients, because even though we're the same company, I could serve them better. That would make sense.
Right.
It was just that healthy. I just love that. Love it.
Yes. And that makes me think of, not to go on a tangent like
No,
we usually do.
Always.
But it makes me think of, like, if there was someone who came into my studio and I knew that I could, like, help them, but I also knew of someone who could help them better.
Yes.
Then me keeping them kind of to myself, and them not having the, like, the highest kind of experience that they could have, is really a disservice to the other professionals, and also to them, and also to myself, because then I have a negative experience. So if anybody's listening right now and you've recently popped up with some competition, or what feels like, or what could be, I think that it's a really good example. It's a cute little story, because it's not like there was ever any animosity, but I'm just like, there's this girl out here kicking tail, and I want to kick tail in that way, but I've been scared. That's all it ever is. Like, we all get nervous before we start stuff. So yeah.
That is so sweet. Cool. I'm so glad you mentioned that. That's kind of a good little, like, rabbit tail to chase,
Yeah, it's cute.
All right. So let's go ahead and get started with the good stuff. So tell me and all of our listeners about yourself. Super broad, right?
I know. And I'm like, okay, how am I going to keep this minimal?
You can talk about whatever you like, my dear.
Well, so I am 26 years old. I now live in a little town in Iowa, the same area, obviously, that probably a lot of your listeners are from.
Yeah.
I grew up kind of around. We lived in a lot of places. My dad was in the military. But we spent most of our, like, time in Seattle, outside of Bremerton, Port Orchard area. So that's kind of where I got a lot of insight when I was a teenager. That place really kind of shaped me a lot. And I kind of started learning a lot about mental health then. And I was also dancing at a studio a lot as a dancer. And then I became a TA and got to help with a lot of stuff and teaching that way, which dance would eventually become my career, which is kind of what I always wanted. Like, I always knew that I could kind of, like, release, and I could express myself, and I could process through movement. And at the time it was dance. So I kind of knew, once I figured dance out, that at like 12 years old, I started dancing, that was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, essentially. I've been really lucky. And, like, as I got older, I had a lot of domestic violence relationships. I think due to some unhealed childhood trauma or interpretations of things. So that really kind of propelled me into the healthcare system, and into the, into the state, and into all the resources that Washington had. And they were pretty good resources. I was able to come down here after working at a really great dance team job for a junior high school. That was a really amazing experience. that really showed me that I really wanted to work with kids more than anything. Having that closeness with the kids, knowing that they could come to me, knowing that, they looked up to me, all of that stuff felt really good. So I loved that. I moved down here, funny enough, I moved down here when I was 18, and it was kind of in and out of a domestic violence thing. I moved in with my family. They had moved here for a job, basically. And I was bored out of my mind, dude. I was so bored. And that was when I think that was when first social media I started doing things. And that's kind of around the time frame that you and I became friends. And you and I became friends because I went through this massive, when I came back, well, no, before that, eventually I decided to start making friends is the point. I'll get to that later. But anyway, I came here, I was super bored. Like, imagine this, girl from Seattle, 18 years old, very sassy, very naive, basically those two things. I land in Cedar Rapids. My mom picks me up. Okay, can we stop at Starbucks? She's like, oh, no. The nearest one's like Iowa City or like Quincy or something. I'm like, okay, so we're just gonna stop there on the way, right? Like, no big deal. No, that's like an hour and a half away. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I was, needless to say, very shocked and very hesitant about my Midwest experience. But, I did find some good friends, and I did get a good job serving and kind of stayed in the food service industry. I decided to move back home because there wasn't a lot of opportunities to teach dance. And I was up there for a little bit, did a little bit in the dance world, did a little bit in the hospitality world, but ultimately just kind of that was kind of when I started really learning about how I might be mentally unwell, what triggers are, what certain symptoms, because I was in and out of domestic violence relationships. And there was only so many resources at the time for me. So I started learning about it a lot. And at the tail end of a very serious, very life-threatening domestic violence relationship, my parents called me and they were like, they kind of knew, they knew what was going on, but I feel like unless you're in it, you don't really understand the extent of what it means to be in a domestic violence relationship.
Right.
So people can only do so much, but they called me and they're like, happening to possibly buy a dance studio, which was really weird. And kind of like, what? Okay. Like, my little sister danced. They had the studio that they danced at, and they were considering buying it. At the time, if we're being completely vulnerable and completely honest, at that time I was being stalked by not one of my crazy exes, but someone who kind of a friend that took advantage of my vulnerability and my financial vulnerability. So there was people following me. There was, I had a crazy boyfriend who kept getting charges when we were separated. It was terrifying. I was living in Tukwila, which I don't know if you ever go to Tukwila. I was working on the Tukwila B-dubs, one of the busiest B-dubs in the country. Yeah, and I was doing very well, but getting out of those situations was like, it's a real struggle that I hope someday I'll be able to go into more depth about. But today we'll just leave it as I took the opportunity to come to Little Iowa in Illinois again. I was like, oh my God, please tell me they have more Starbucks. Like, that was like, once I got out of my little like mindset, like, okay, I'm gonna go to safety and it's gonna be great. But then when I got here, I was like, okay, so there's a Starbucks in Fort Madison. I'm good.
Yeah, you're safe now.
I'm good.
Not only are you safe, but you're like safe. Like,
I have like a little bit of home with me still. So yeah. And from there is a really interesting, truly life-changing road trip with my sister. That was just insanity, coming down from Washington through the middle of the country during the winter. We got stuck in the Rockies. It was amazing. It was, looking back, it's very like fairy tale like, because I'm like, that's ironic, and then we get here and we decided, my parents decided to open their own studio. So now flash forward, it's really crazy to think about. That was 3 years ago. And now I teach adult yoga out of the studio. We teach kids dance and tumbling, kids yoga. Soon we'll be offering the trauma-informed yoga here. But yeah, so that's the kind of the business career thing. I also clean during the day. I clean houses. I really love that because I just really like helping people. And I like it because it's my time to get with myself. You know, it's a good time to, a lot of things changed. I think that our personalities changed a lot after trauma. And it's uncomfortable to kind of take these new things. I went from being able to work in a group to not really being able to work in a group. So having that alone time was really like sacred to me. So if you're a cleaning client, you're listening to this, I still use my cleaning to manage things. It's a good way to scrub it out. I don't know if anyone's a nervous cleaner or like an angry cleaner, but
I'm an upset cleaner. Like when I am upset about something, like I'm on the floor, like scrubbing my baseboards, like, you know.
There's supposed to be some sort of like ancient like thing to that, like because we're so used to homemaking and such. But yeah, so that whole thing has been really grounding, and it's nice because it's just my thing. So it's always nice to have little, you know, when you're doing when you're managing a business or especially working with people's kids or just anything that you really love your job. Like if you really love your job, it's hard to prioritize. So that's cleaning has been a godsend for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I'm very, very thankful. Very, very thankful. I have a daughter. We'll call her Baby J.
And Baby J is like so freaking cute. Oh my gosh. Adorbs. I just love your pics of her. She's so perfect.
Dude, she's adorable. She's so smiley. And it's so funny. I love being a parent because truly like kids remind you. And, you know, I didn't have to get this experience. I didn't have to be a parent to get this experience because I get it all the time with dance kids. But they really remind you to just like put the bowl down and like go have some fun, you know, like be in the moment, like be in the moment with me, you know, that's kind of what kids are always saying. So
sometimes it's so nice to just like I know like with my nephew, like I want to take all the pictures and videos ever, but then there's sometimes where I'm just like, you know what, like there's nothing other than the feeling that I'm going to capture right now. You know what I'm saying? Like I just need to put my phone down and just live in that moment with him because I am going to feel that for the rest of my life. And it's such there's no amount of pictures or videos that's going to capture how I'm feeling right now. So
and then it's like, and then it's sad because you're like, they're getting so big.
Oh my God. And then the moment's over.
And then they're running. You're like, what happened? That's what me and Jay are at right now. She's pulling everything out of the drawers and like, has a question, you know, she's curious about everything now. So, which is cool. It's nice. It's kind of easier to manage, but I'm on pickup control a lot, damage control. So, but yeah, so that's, having Juliet, having the business, growing relationships within the community has really, it's been very challenging, very, very challenging. Hit a lot of diversity, with myself, with the public, within my family. Oh yeah.
Iowa.
It's very different. It's very different. And I have a really wonderful friend who actually kind of like me and you, we switched places. I have a very wonderful friend who, she grew up in Burlington and now lives in Seattle. So we found each other. She's a booty instructor.
Is it Katie?
Yes.
I
and
love
she
her.
said it really beautifully. She said it really beautifully because her and I, we talk about it because, you know, she's in my turf and we're here and we're doing the same kind of thing. So she said something along the lines of like, it's nice being able to just fit, like, she didn't say fitted, but it's nice to just be yourself and like, people are accepting of that.
Oh yeah. Like, well, no one even cares here. Like no one's going to bat an eye. It's like, okay. What are you doing over there? No.
Yeah, I know. It's just like this city things. People are just too busy, you know,
yeah,
and that's kind of
nice stuff going on. It's like, I'm not going to worry what Joe's doing.
Yeah, it's kind of nice because then you no one's paying attention. And maybe it's just because outside coming here, I do feel like the dynamic is different. There are a lot of benefits though. There are a lot of benefits. I am very, very loved out here. I was very, very loved back home, but really this year since having Juliet, like I've seen like there is a different sense of community. It might not be as progressive that I would appreciate. But there are a lot of benefits to this area. And I know you feel that because I know you love it out here.
Oh, I do. I miss it all the time. It's just like the small town home vibes that I get when I'm there. But I felt the opposite end too. You know, I felt like when things, I have an episode about this particular topic. And it's just like, you know, when I was back home in the summer, there's things that had went down, like those little things of drama. And that's one of the things that's really hard about a small town is because everybody knows everybody and everything. So they think,
So they think.
So they hear one side of the story, but I'm not going to post my side of the story out on social media for everybody to see because I don't need to do that, you know? Like at the end of the day, I know like the good Lord will judge my actions and that's the only person that's going to matter at the end of the day. But it's hard because, you know, sometimes I get in my own head and I'm just like, well, that person just quit liking my post out of nowhere. Like I don't have their support anymore. And I wonder if it's because of what Sally said to Sam about me. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's just like those things and they get in your head and they weigh heavy on you. But then on the opposite side, I have so many people, you know, there that are still rooting me on and, you know, my diehards from day one. And I appreciate that. So it's, it can be a really great thing and it can be a really bad thing.
Really hard. Yeah.
So
I mean, I feel
that's small town life right there.
Yes.
For sure.
And,
you know,
and that's the thing is that people think they know, and kind of a segue into social media. That's the hardest thing about social media. Like, okay, well, we all know there's a lot of hard things. Like there's a ton of hard things, but what I'm like realizing recently is it seems like there's a lack of awareness around the fact that you might have an opinion that's different than mine because there are like life things that happen to you that make you have that opinion. I feel like there's just somewhere like, I don't know if it's the education system or like something where there's this gap that's like, this is how to allow people to have opinions. And this is how to not be offended by that opinion.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I don't know. I really do think it's like a compassion.
Yes.
Because like
empathy. I think empathy plays such a huge role. And I think a lot of people are like keyboard warriors, you know, like they forget that there's someone behind that, you know, and it's like, you would never say that to someone's face. Why are you doing it over the internet? You know, like all of a sudden they get brave and courageous to say these awful things, you know?
Yeah. It's really, really sad. And it really hurts me when it's about kids.
Oh,
it's like, we have to have a line, you know, everybody should have like a line, but that's also another philosophy. I didn't realize that was a philosophy concept until I was like really like thinking about it. I'm like, oh, people can really just live whatever mean way they want to.
Yes, absolutely.
Dang it.
Yeah.
So
that's funny. Yeah. I swear, every time we talk, we go on these like little like side, like here's our road and we're like, oh, let's take this turn. Let's say, you know, like all around. But it's really good conversation, you know, and it's like, I feel like it's conversation that needs to be heard. So it's a beautiful thing. But one of the things I wanted to get into was, well, first of all, you're like a busy girl. You got a lot going on, man. Like, you know, I've always known you're doing a lot, but like you keep adding things. I'm just like, whoa, this is going to be great. And then I'm like, holy moly, like she's adding it up, man. I love it. I love it. So in case like people didn't hear, you teach dance, right? And tumbling. And you teach kids yoga, trauma-informed yoga, right? You're going to be teaching adult trauma-informed yoga. You teach
kind of dipped my toes in it already a little bit, but
that's awesome. And you teach yoga like 7 days a week, right?
6 days.
6 days.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
6 days.
Saturday. You don't teach
Saturday?
6 days a week. Oh my gosh. And you clean.
Yes.
And you run an amazing social media account on Facebook.
Oh, thanks, dude. I appreciate that.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And now you're running a mommy blog, right?
Mom blog. Yeah.
Mom
my friend
blog.
Angel Rose. I have such a love-hate with it because I'm like, I've got to get all this. I mean, I share a lot of mom stuff and I love it, but I kind of, with the age of information, I have to figure out how to manage the information in my head. So
Yeah.
I figured I'd combine forces with a wonderful friend of mine, Angel Rose, who has a lot of kind of the same, it's kind of like natural minded, mindful parenting stuff.
Yeah, I've noticed.
And I've noticed that there's actually, surprisingly, which I'm totally okay with, there's people who are not moms who are liking the page. So I think that's really cool.
That was like, heck yeah. Hey. I liked it. I was like, I want to know. Because I mean, maybe I will be a mom and I'll have these little things in my pocket.
Exactly. Know? And a lot of the information is relevant to people. And this is just kind of like my, like kind of an overall message would be that this is really important information. Mindfulness, you know, we don't have to do the natural thing, but mindfulness is something that everyone should be keeping in mind because it really shapes your brain. It really changes your body. I mean, there's tons of data. I'm always posting about it. I know that you post a ton of good stuff too. But the kids are the future.
Yeah.
It's basically the message. The kids are the future. So how you interact with children, even at the grocery store, might be relevant. I don't know, just an idea. But so that's, I do a lot of things. I
love it.
I try to do a lot of little things. I have ADHD, so I feel like it helps.
I love that, you know, like it's kind of, I don't want to say like all over the place, but you have your hands in different buckets. And I feel like that's such a good way to, one, not become bored, but also like there's been such this like stigma that we have to pick a career and then you have to keep that career for the rest of your life. And it's like, that's not even who we are. Like as humans, like that doesn't even make any sense, you know? Like,
I could never choose.
No. And I have like so many things I'm interested in. I have my hands all over like random stuff. And I mean, it just keeps it fun and interesting that way, you know?
Yeah.
So, that's really cool.
Yeah. And it's a nice way to like build community and like, what's the word I'm looking for? There's supposed to be, I never turned out this way, but there's supposed to be some, I don't know if it's Rick Warren, I don't know who it is, but they say you're supposed to have like 7 or 6 flows of income in different places.
At all times. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I'd say that's true because there's certain situations that I can't have one income, but I can do another one. Like there's days that I can't drive anywhere. So, you know, maybe I could also do this, an extra one of these. It's nice. So I encourage anybody to pursue the little things. Those are amazing.
Yeah.
Like you do like with your lashing and all of that stuff. And now this podcast too. Like,
yes, it's so fun. It is so fun.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the major things though, is yoga for you. And I wanted to get in, and talk about like, how did you even find yoga? What made you want to do it and why? Because I know that was such a beautiful story you told me.
Yeah. It's kind of another funny one, I think. So we'll start with, I moved here to open the studio and my little sister, amazing dancer, amazing young woman, complete creative, amazing person, started doing conventions and competing a lot in dance. And my mom was like, you know, you should really get a certification for yoga because it's like the thing to do, you know? And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, we'll do it. Like, at first I was like, oh, you want me to do something else? Like, I'm going to teach dance. Yoga is breathing and stretching. So like, we're all doing yoga all the time. You know what I mean? That was my education.
It's breathing and stretching. Like,
that was my education on yoga. Yeah.
I love it. You're like, little did I know.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh boy. But coming from Washington, yoga was just, I had never seen any sort of spiritual side. It was like, come take this fitness class or this fitness class. You know, it's everywhere. So it's kind of like, yeah, sure, whatever, I'll do it. So honestly, I just got a certification online and I struggled with that. I still struggle to this day over that. And I don't recommend that for the average person. The only reason why I've even felt okay with doing it is because I have been teaching dance for like 7-8 years.
Right.
I always wanted to get into anatomy. For a long while, I was kind of on and off pursuing like physical therapy, things like that. So I've always been extremely enamored and interested by the body and always been moving the body. And I always tried to coach safely and teach the kids safe stretching. So once I started learning about it, I was like, oh, I kind kind of been doing like the poses and stuff because dance was so similar. And then from there, I just kind of started holding free classes in Warsaw at the Bot. Shout out to the Fromans for hooking it up with that. They let me use the space for free, and we just did by donation classes. And it was my first time really, really teaching it. I had been teaching dance and stretching for so long that it just was like, it seemed very natural. It was very, very weird still because I was leading people through breath. And that's kind of weird to do at first. And it's weird for people in the room who have never really done breath work in like a public space. They're like, oh, we all breathing together. Like, do I breathe now? When do I breathe?
I love that. I remember taking a yoga class, like, and everybody was like breathing really loud around me. And I was like, oh, we're cool to do that. So like now when I take yoga classes and I hear no one breathing, I like try to be the loudest, like, hey guys,
yes,
hey, we could breathe, you know, like,
yeah, let it out. Yeah. And I love that. And that's like the best feeling in the world as an instructor when you like really, or like the good, like sigh it out. And like, you can tell it's coming from like the solar plexus in the belly. You're just like,
oh yeah.
Yeah. That's why I do what I do there.
They get it. They get it.
They do. Yeah. And it's always nice having a little hype man.
Yes.
My hype. But yeah, so that kind of started out, I think that was before we opened the studio. I was kind of dipping my toes into it. At that time, I was going through a lot of mental health stuff. I was off of, I think I was about to try pharmaceutical medication. And that was kind of like a really rocky road. But yoga, that's actually kind of how yoga came into fruition for me was I just wasn't doing well. I went to see a doctor to get some antidepressants or maybe something to help with my PTSD. Because at this point I've had a PTSD diagnosis and I've been trying to manage my PTSD from my traumatic events for a good like year. I went to a family doctor and he prescribed me Zoloft. I don't know, something that type of antidepressant, and it made me like way too tired. So I wasn't really able to get anything done. I was working at a pig farm at the time. Most people don't know that. I worked at a pig farm. I worked at a multiplication pig farm.
No way.
Yeah, I'm really happy I did. It was quite, it's a very interesting experience. I don't know if anyone's worked at a multiplication pig farm, but
my ex used to work at a pig farm and it was like so gross. I was like, man, you stink all the time.
Yeah, thankfully we got to shower there. Thank God.
That's great.
Yeah, so for anyone who thinks like, oh, this girl just doesn't know anything. No, I do know.
I know everything. There. I worked at a pig farm.
Yeah, I know a little bit about how things work and how smelly y'all get and how hard y'all work. Because
I love that. That is so fun.
It was data, but like it was a breeding farm. So like I got to help birth little piglets. It was honestly, it was cute. Some of them died, which was very, very sad. And eventually they got shipped off. But for the moment, it was really, really beautiful. But
that is a fun little fact.
Yeah. So working at a pig farm and seeing things die and then being on antidepressants and not being right was really, really challenging.
That kind of is a lot.
It was intense.
It can be trauma in itself.
I know. But I tried a bunch of different things, and I kind of have some philosophies on why the different medications work. Didn't work. He had me try lithium, which I feel like for bipolar disorder, which was rather intense. That one really sent me off. And that's why I'm such a mental health advocate now, because I've had debilitating symptoms of PTSD that have really made me adjust my life, but nothing made me feel more out of control. Like I literally just wasn't in control of my mind or anything than like those pills, the lithium. And then I kind of think I didn't have time to detox. And I think that that's something that people should really consider, because it would be like, you were on this pill now and, oh, it doesn't work for you. Okay, try this one right now. But I don't know a lot about the body, but at least in that aspect. So some interesting things for people to think about when trying pharmaceutical medications. But anyway, I ended up eventually getting into a car accident on Connable Road. If anybody's familiar with that, I swerved for a deer. This was all at the same time. So I was very, very, it was like perfect storm for like new trauma. and I got into a car accident that I veered off the road for the deer. My car was airborne. The cop said airborne and traveled 132 feet, 128, something like that. And all sides of my car rolled, like every side. And this was while I was moving from one city into the studio. So I had the last bit of my belongings in my car. I'm very, very grateful that I didn't get more hurt. I did have severe whiplash, and obviously your nervous system getting thrown around like that after having the trauma and new owners, like new ownership of a business, like it was a lot. So I ended up quitting all the medication. It just kind of like after that car accident, it just made my head worse, basically. I quit all of the medication. And then I launched the unlimited yoga program. So you take as many classes as you want. You see this format a lot. It's not anything like new or special, but it's when we started doing it. You take as many classes as you want. There was like 4 classes on the schedule. And I basically knew that yoga was my only shot at this point to make my back better, because I didn't have enough money to go see a physical therapist or massage therapist or anything like that. So I basically started really diving into yoga and how to fix back pain. And that was kind of my focus in my classes, because then I realized everyone has back pain.
Always.
I know. I'm like, I don't know how, like it took so many things for me to realize that other people are hurting, but I've got my blinders on. So then after a while, I started noticing that without the intention at all, it was helping my anxiety. It was helping me ground. The meditation was helping me. And then I realized that there is a connection between the body and the mind and the spirit or soul, or however, to source, to God, however people want to view it. There is definitely some sort of really magical, but also a very physical connection between all of the things. So, I've been steady teaching quite a few classes for a while, and I decided to get trauma-informed certified in the spring by Zabi Yamasaki. She is, I believe it's transcending sexual trauma through yoga. She's the real deal in the field. Completely amazing. Has most of her programs in college campuses and worked at University of California in Irvine for a long time. Just completely phenomenal. I did that in the spring, but I was very much struggling with imposter syndrome. I wanted to do that certification for like 2 years. I wanted to go get trauma-informed yoga training and all of that. But it kind of took a while to, I guess, build the courage to do it and to possibly be seen as someone who can help give you things with that. And it also means that I had to have a certain caliber of being able to manage my own symptoms as well, which really, really started happening a few months after my car accident. And I started hitting the yoga really hard. Is when I started figuring out how my body worked, how my brain worked with my body, how my breath worked with my body, and how those things can actually make a lot of things better and rewire you to be more self-sufficient when it comes to managing your symptoms of anything. So, yeah, that's kind of the yoga spiel.
Amazing. That's like a lot of little nuggets there that you just kind of like dropped in.
And what's really interesting about yoga, and it makes me laugh, because I had this job called Whiskey Gulch. It was a restaurant called Whiskey Gulch in Port Orchard, Washington, which was just the coolest job ever. I had so many great friends that were family there. And there was this one lady who was like my mom. We got a work mom. She always told me, Alexis, you should really go get certified to be a yoga teacher. And I'm like, Nina, I'm not going to be a yogi. I'm not going to be like because she was like, Nina, if you ever meet Nina, she is like a true yogi goddess. Like she is everything. She was a dancer. She went to college for dance, but she's like, I think in her 40s. So we kind of had a lot in common. She'd always be like, I think you'd really like it. It'd be really good for your anxiety. Be really good for this. And I'm like, stretching. Okay. Yeah. Great, Nina. Thanks. And now I'm like, I need to see Nina and give her the biggest hug in the world, because
for real,
she was foreshadowing for me. She tried to tell me, the universe tried to tell me I was like still in it. So but yeah.
Oh my goodness. I love it. That's so great. There's a lot of little information there. So like you were talking about kind of how it changed your life, and what made you start teaching, but how do you feel like it helps you change other people's lives? Like, explain that process to you, or to me anyways. Do you want me to tell you about first, like, how it changed my life?
Please. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I attended, for people that don't know, I was home in the summer while my husband was deployed, and I was already like super obsessed with Alexis.
Oh, we're talking.
We're just gonna go there. I mean, I was like super obsessed.
So likewise.
It's really funny, like, that the feeling is mutual now, because I just felt like I was silently stalking you. Like, I remember telling my sister, I was like, I want to be Alexis when I grow up. Like,
oh my God.
It's so
That's
funny.
hilarious, because it's literally the same thing for you.
Oh my God.
I tell Matt, I'd be like, how do I do that? Like, and Matt would just be like, you just have to go do it, Alexis. I'm like, anyway, sorry.
Oh, so
I
funny.
love that.
I love that too. Like, I remember our first time actually going to, love the random husband sighting. I remember us going to lunch at was it lunch or breakfast? I can't remember. And I just like my dreams are coming true. Like, I'm meeting Alexis, like, outside of yoga. Like, this is weird. Like,
and outside Facebook.
Yes. Like, I was just so happy. But anyways,
I love it.
Back to yoga. I took my first yoga class with you, and I had taken several yoga classes before, like in Virginia Beach. And then here at Seattle, I've done hot yoga, like all that stuff. And then I do yoga at home through wonderful videos, you know? And so, like, I had done that stuff before, but your class was like no other, because I can't remember if I took like a regular class or if I took a booty class first. Not that it even matters.
I think you went to booty on Fridays first, and then you went to self-love. Or did you go to rooftop first?
Oh, shoot. I don't remember. Not that it even matters. But anyways, I did one of those. And the class was like perfection. But then at the end, like your meditation, like I swear almost every class I would leave like sobbing, but like in a good way. Like it was just like this amazing like release. And I was like, man, this girl is like just a freaking goddess. Like, what is she doing to me? But then booty in particular was probably one of my favorites, because if people don't know, I'll try to explain it and then I'll let you do it. But like, it's like tribal, kind of like tribal dancing, rhythmic vinyasa flows. Kind of Danielle it there a little bit.
Exactly. With lots of plyometrics, your own body weight against you, that whole deal. Yeah.
Oh my God, it was amazing. And I had always wanted to try booty yoga. And then when you said that you taught it, I was like, oh my gosh. So I go and I try this class and literally obsessed. Like, I want to become a booty yoga instructor because I love it. Like, but it just made me feel like so like sexy and confident. But then on the other side, like, I just was like pounding the floor like on some of the moves. And I'm like, let it out. Like, and then like you can hoop and holler. And I was just like yelling and screaming. And I was like, oh, it just felt so good. It felt so good. And then of course your self-love class was like just A+, amazing. Exactly what you need to like wind down and then like get ready for the week.
Yes.
So good. So good.
Yeah. Some of my favorite classes.
That's kind of how it changed my life, was just like, especially that meditation at the end that you do. I just felt so centered, and probably one of my favorite memories ever. I don't know if you'll know what I'm going to say, but so my sister got a hold of Alexis and they planned a booty yoga, like surprise glow party for me for my birthday. And not only was it like my favorite playlist of like all of these Beyonce and Drake songs and some Backstreet Boys, it was so fun. Like, that's my favorite. And then at the end, like, you said this meditation that was like, I wish I would have recorded it, but you were just like saying that because a whole bunch of my friends showed up and you were like, we're just thankful for Sarah. And I was just like, got punched. Like, what? She's thankful for me? Like, oh my God. Like, I was just sobbing. I just was like in disbelief that all these people came to booty yoga for a surprise party for me. And then like, it was such a surreal moment. I just felt so like loved and safe and just happy. It was pure bliss. Pure bliss.
It's so nice when like it feels like the world kind of just came together for you for a moment, you know?
It's like everybody just hugged me, like
an energetic hug.
Yes.
The best during Shavasana.
Yeah.
Sharing the energy. Yeah.
I love it.
That's
I love
awesome.
it. So it was kind of some fun things there, but How do you feel like
awesome.
you have changed people's lives? Like what do you feel?
So I feel like this is always super weird to talk about
Oh, I'm
because,
sure.
you know, it's like, it's really hard to think that people look to me for information. It's hard to think that people look to me for healing.
Mm-hmm.
People sometimes inbox me questions about trauma, and it brings me so much joy. That was before I launched Trauma Informed Yoga.
Sure.
So with the most humility, I do feel like I help people by, I think that just speaking out is really helpful. And I think that anybody and everybody should speak out about what's on their heart and what their topic is and what they're advocates for. So I do think that just putting the ideas and the information out there for people is really, really good and really helpful because it gets conversations going. And sometimes being the topic of conversation, bringing these things to light is not amazing. However, when someone tells me, like, example, every now and again I go out to hang out with my friends and I go out and have drinks. And I'd say like 8 out of 10 times someone comes up to me and they say, I just want to thank you so much for sharing what you do. Like, it really means a lot to me. It really helps me on this. Like, I'm feeling down and then I see something like this in my feed, or I think it's amazing that you're doing all of this work. So all of that is really, really encouraging. And I think that the social media it's hard to have a good relationship with social media because I understand how bad it can be. But the goal for me is to make the message of my social media in alignment with the compliments that I've already gotten about me showing my true heart. Me showing my true heart and wanting to help people. That's just my nature. And I've been fortunate enough to have a platform and a business to run that, those desires and that kind of like that deep need to help people. So that's been good. On a more personal, in-person level, I do think that because I speak out about things, the in-person conversations are important. There are some people in my life that have made a lot of really awesome changes, and I've also made a lot of awesome changes when it comes to like health and how we view our mental illness, and bringing awareness to issues on a personal level, I think is really beneficial. But when it comes to classes, I would say the most feedback that I get is that it really helps with anxiety. That's the number one thing that I hear. It really helps with anxiety. A lot of people, it helps with their back pain or their shoulder pain. So that feels amazing to know that I can help people in that way. Yeah, I think that's in the most humble way that I can think of things. I think that's how the conversations and how the movement helps people.
That is really beautiful. I love it. So what is like one of your main goals with these yoga classes that you teach? And before we get into that real quick though, why don't you tell us like what your schedule of yoga classes are? Because we didn't get into that.
Yes. Okay. So I'm trying to think the best way. I have so many classes on the schedule now, which I'm so thankful for, but I'm like, how
That's
do I?
amazing.
Yeah.
It.
I'm super, super, super fortunate. So Mondays in Fort Madison, I have booty yoga. That's the cardio dance tribal vinyasa flow. There are modifications offered. That's a free flow class. So it's all free flow, but like, it's really cool because it kind of feels like a party. It's bass heavy music, EDM, rap, hip hop. Sometimes we get some good slow tunes in there. I'm just saying Landslide is often in
love
there.
It. Love it.
But yeah, so that's Monday at 7:30 to 8:30 in Fort Madison. And then Tuesdays, I have chair yoga at noon in Fort Madison, which is a great class for if you recover from surgery and you have a doctor's clearance, if you are very new to yoga, if you're working with a lot of discomfort in your body, chair yoga is a great place to start. That's Tuesdays at noon in Fort Madison. And then probably one of my most favorite classes to teach is warm flow Tuesday nights, 7:30 to 8:30. It's like 85 degrees. It's not humid, or at least we try to make sure it's not humid. And it's not like hot yoga where you're sweating. It's just like this nice warm room where you could just kind of come in and take a nap. We do gentle stretching, a little bit a little bit heavier on the meditation, just because the nature of it is a hatha class. So we're very slow moving through everything, and it's always your pace and your tempo in my classes. Wednesdays we do wild card, which is really fun because it's kind of like whatever the people want and whatever maybe I'm inspired by that week. So this week, example, we're doing a heart chakra class.
So fun.
Yeah. And we've done, I try to do a woman's like a heels dancing class. Sometimes we use a chair and it's like really hot.
Oh my gosh. I cannot wait to do that.
Oh my gosh. It's the best.
That'll be so fun.
We're talking about doing heels at the Y as well. So that'll be fun.
That would be a blast.
I know. I'm hoping that people come out for it because it really, I don't know, really makes a difference when you have people to do something fun like that with. So
yeah. The only suggestion I would say about that one is to put a freaking sheet over the windows at the Y, so you don't have
absolutely
like creeping.
I was thinking about that. I was like, well,
even with booty, like there's a couple of times where I like catch someone in the mirror staring, and I'm like,
oh my gosh, really? Oh my gosh, yes. I'll find little things to put over.
Yeah, totally.
I'll find a big flyer that says "Come to class or get away." Join us and sweat it out or get out.
Love it.
But yeah, so, and then Wednesdays is fun. I try to do dance classes and we try to do specific. I've been kind of toying with the idea of in the future possibly getting a personal trainer certificate or some sort of holistic nutrition, Ayurvedic type thing so that I can start to host classes, right? Girl, you inspired me.
Love it.
So that I can kind of start to lead classes. Like it would be really wonderful. And I'm actually qualified to lead a class about the vagus nerve, which has a lot to do with trauma and how all of that attaches. So I've been kind of thinking about making it more into a group setting of discussion and education with yoga rather than just a yoga class. So it's kind of like the format of the heart chakra. We have certain oils, we have certain elements, maybe we'll have stones, and then we do a flow around that. It would be the same concept. So I'm always open to ideas for Wednesdays, really willing to do anything. Thursdays are vinyasa, so that's a faster type yoga flow. On the West Coast, a power vinyasa is probably what people are more familiar with. But with all of my teachings and also with vinyasa, it means to place in a special way, vin to place, yasa in a special way. So if at any time anyone wants to move slower or rest, they're welcome to. Fridays, I have family yoga in Keokuk. Basically, show up with your family, do some yoga, always good. Super cute. 4:30 to 5:15 on Fridays at the Keokuk Y. And then I also have Buddha yoga, 6 to 6:45 Friday nights. And then the final one is Sunday, self-love, which is the class that you were talking about. That is, I didn't really realize it before, but it was kind of trauma-informed yoga in its early stages. Like it was kind of, it was kind of, it's around gratitude. I mean, it's more, I try to have a little bit more connection to the body than trauma-informed yoga might format for, just because that was something that with my symptoms was really on my heart. And I noticed that there was a big disconnect between people and their bodies. So that class it's just a special place in my heart. I love that class so much.
Me too. I love all your classes. There's not one that I've done I haven't loved yet. And
I actually forgot about one class. I just put it on the schedule though. So
what is it?
I have to talk about that. It's the kids trauma informed yoga.
Oh, yes. I was going to ask you about that.
That hasn't been on my schedule. We just started that 6-week program. So that's basically the trauma informed yoga, teaching kids mindfulness, teaching them meditation techniques, grounding, lots of grounding exercises. Basically giving them tools to, hopefully they're receptive to the tools that should help them with mood regulation and managing times of stress, high stress. So that's Tuesdays at Oak Brook in Keokuk, and we're really, really excited about that. So we'll hopefully see more of those things coming in the future at that location too.
Super fun. And what time is that Tuesday class you said?
That is 5:45 to 6:15. And I'm actually kind of like unofficially calling it Kids Wellness Night in Keokuk because after my trauma-informed yoga class, Mandy Moon, I'm sure you know Mandy.
Oh, I love
She's
her.
holding a kids mindfulness class after. So it's going to be
so cute.
I wish Juliet was old enough because I'm like,
yes,
this is the best thing for you to do on a Tuesday night. Get in there.
Wow. That is just super fun. And what are the ages for that?
Right now, I think the youngest we have is 6, and I think the oldest we have is like 12.
Oh,
So it
wow.
is,
That's great.
yeah. So, and because it's
Great.
independent work, just in a group,
Uh-huh.
we have some flexibility on the age. I would say younger than 6, though. We're going to be putting out a feeler for having a class for that. That would, I mean, it could still be trauma informed yoga.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain formats, but at a younger than 6, it's kind of more like yoga mindfulness kind of.
Love it.
So,
Love it.
yeah.
And real quick, for people that don't really understand, what is trauma informed yoga? What does that do for you, and kind of what does that mean?
So trauma-informed yoga is a format that a lot of, when it comes to, first I want to give people I want to talk about why it's credible before I even explain what it is. It is being recognized in universities. It is being recognized in healthcare, in psychology, like psychiatrist office, therapist office. My training that I went to, I was expecting to be pretty much all yoga instructors, but it was actually mostly clinicians, mostly people in social work, mostly therapists,
Wonderful.
mostly, yeah, truly, truly amazing. So that is kind of how I want to lead that with. I was presented at the training with a lot of science, and that made me really, really happy and really comforted that I wasn't just like doing this big woo-woo thing, you know, like I already knew Zabi was amazing, and then being there and seeing it. So basically, trauma-informed yoga is a science-based healing modality that has been shown to oftentimes be a stepping stone to get to therapy, to talk therapy, right? So how this specific training that I went through came into fruition was Zabi, the founder, I think she was working at a school, and she noticed that there was a lot of sexual assault happening, and that there was very little reporting, and there was nowhere for the victims to go. And it's mainly started on campus. And then from there, she's grown it, and now there's online platforms, and she trains all over the place. So, yes, very honored to be a part of it. But trauma-informed yoga is essentially allowing yourself to go to a yoga class that doesn't tell you what to do. It's all led by you. I mean, I give you ideas, but it's not a sport. It's not recalling trauma. It's not thinking about your trauma. It is basically a format that allows you to remind yourself that you are the owner of your body, that the choice, like, how do I say this? We cannot control what happens to us,
right?
But with tools, with knowledge, with support, we are all, or mostly all, able to learn how to manage ourselves. And trauma-informed yoga is basically just another way that you can reset your brain through breathing, and you deciding to make the moves, you deciding if you want to go into a pose, or you deciding if you want to stay. And every instructor will put their own spin on things. So that's kind of the basics. Is it's basically a format that's evidence-based, that allows you to make you to make the choices that you want to in your practice. There's typically art things involved. There's typically grounding techniques involved. And there was one more thing I was going to add. Trauma-informed yoga, a lens of compassion. It basically invites you to the idea that you can view yourself through a lens of compassion. And there's a lot of deeper explanations that I could go, and I'd love to go into. But I think for the first palatable information, it's an evidence-based format that you can kind of reaffirm that you are in charge of your body, and it is your body, and it's okay for you to be just as you are today. That's perfect. It's always your choice how fast you move. It's always your choice what you do. So, and that's been really beneficial. I've learned a lot about the body. I learned so much about the body at Buddha yoga training, and then going to trauma-informed yoga training and getting the brain aspect, the science, all of that was just really incredible. So
I love that. I think a couple of things that you said that was really important was, one, evidence-based. I think a lot of times you consume this information just by a Facebook link, and you see the website is like something absolutely so ludicrous. It's like, I could literally write it and put it out there and publish it, you know, and someone can circulate it, and that's how easy information can get shared. So the fact that, you know, it's evidence-based just goes to show that there's been a lot of research around it, and credible research. And that's so important.
Yes. And it takes a lot of time to get that research.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's why I think what you're saying is so relevant, because that means that it's been around for a certain amount of time. And a lot of times when there's people on the groundwork like me and you and these founders that we know, they're not really coming from money. They're not funding any sources or any studies to be swayed in any certain direction. They're just, they actually have to go and do the work and make sure they collect all the data. And so it's a very lengthy process. So yeah, the evidence-based portion is extremely important.
It is. I love that. And then one thing I want to ask you was, when we hear the word trauma, I know at the beginning, trauma sounds tragic. It sounds like chaos. It sounds huge things, like loss, death, sexual harassment, sexual assault. And I just wanted to touch base on what trauma actually is, and how something so little can actually be something so traumatic in someone's life. And no one's trauma is worse or better or whatever than someone else's. And I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Oh my God. Yeah. So many things. I'll try to remember, because you're so spot on about so many things, and there's so many misconceptions. So I remember the first time I opened up to someone that wasn't my friend about having PTSD. And it was actually at the pig farm. And he was an older Hispanic gentleman, very nice, amazing. Like, he should be my grandpa. I would love that. But he said, "You have PTSD? I thought only veterans could have that. You didn't go to war?" And I was like, "No, homie, there was a war, like, in person, like, or like there was a war in my mind. Like, I mean, I went to war, but not that war." So I kind of had to explain it to him, and it made me realize, like, wow, like, there are really people who would think that. That's actually, I shared an article about it, and it got like 2,500 shares. I don't know if you saw that. It was about misconceptions about PTSD, and how I think the statistic is like 18% of, oh man, I don't know. It's like 30% of people have PTSD before the age of 18. I'm not sure. I will check that out and know my statistics better. But yeah, anyway, so I kind of realized that there was a misconception about it. Come to find out, trauma by definition is basically a time that you and your body and your brain undergo unmanageable high stress. So that really, when you think about it, how many times has Alexis gone through times of unmanageable high stress? Yo, I'm talking about 4 or 5 years of my life. I'm not talking about one singular event. I'm talking about just living. Yes, sometimes, literally. And I know I'm not the only person. Like, it's society, it's life. We're all under high amounts of stress all the time. So if we don't have the tools to keep ourselves self-sufficient and keep ourselves centered and grounded and all of those things, then trauma can kind of turn into, it's rather easy, I would say. I think people would be surprised on how trauma works, in the sense of that there's no real timeline of trauma. There's different stages. But if we got into the same car accident and we experienced the same exact thing, like the same exact things, I might be traumatized and you might not be traumatized.
Exactly. I might just say, "Oh, it's a car wreck."
She might just be like, "Oh, my back hurts. I'm Gucci." Yeah. But I mean, like, my car accident scars me to this day. I am terribly afraid of driving now, especially that I have Juliet. I am especially afraid of driving. I'm especially afraid of driving on Connable Road. Like, it affects everybody differently. And even if we were both traumatized by that same event, let's say we both come out and we're like, "Wow, that was crazy. I'm traumatized." Your stages of grief and anger and accepting and all of those different stages, I believe literally there's 6 different stages. Five stages of grief. It's a real thing. Yes. And it can happen in any sort of order, and all of our orders can be different. We don't know how long we're going to be in the grief stage for. We don't know how long we're going to be in any of the stages for. And the crazy thing that people don't realize, that I've been learning, at least in my experience, is that we kind of might go through those 5 phases for one thing multiple times. Yes. Because there's so many dimensions to healing. There's really it's really incredible. I encourage anyone to empower themselves with the information, because once you understand your trauma and what might be considered trauma, like, my first traumatic event that I remember having a grasp that I knew I was experiencing something traumatic was I got in trouble in 8th grade. This is so dumb. I got in trouble in 8th grade for bringing my friend like Hydroxycut because she thought she was too fat at like 13 years old, and me being the healer and the teacher that I am, naive as all get out.
Wow.
I went to school. I brought her the Hydroxycut. I read the directions. I was like, okay, girlfriend, like, don't take this, like this and this and this. You got to eat. You got to do this. And the girl didn't follow any of the rules, and she got sick. Okay. Like she like threw up at school, and then she didn't get like terribly sick, nothing long-term besides whatever she was dealing with that she felt like she had to be skinny, but she got like throwing up or nauseous. And then I got suspended. And I was like,
what?
Oh yeah. They treated it. Dude, technically, I just want to say 1 second. Technically, Hydroxycut is a vitamin, and they treated it as a like as a street drug. Dude, like I basically got suspended for like if I was bringing pills or marijuana or some sort of hard drug to school.
Ouch.
Yeah. So this lady, yeah, and that kind of made me like, so that happened within my school system. I was on the dance team. It was very traumatizing because then I couldn't compete in the dance world at our field trip, which was basically a trip to Florida from Washington for nationals. So it was like, that was my first experience of trauma because it was so
a lot of trauma at once.
Yeah. Well, and I was just like
it's
a
like
really
a trickle
good
down too, you know?
I had very serious consequences for something that was so simple and something that I did. Like, by no means was I like, forget this girl. Like, I'm going to take her out. Yes. I'm going to give her some Hydroxycut and she going to be gone. Like, no, this girl's my best friend. You were being
helpful. Like,
I know.
Oh
so
my
cute.
God.
It was like so cute and so
I
sweet.
just want to hold the 8-year-old you and just hug her. Like, it's okay.
I know. The sweetest thing ever. So,
oh my God.
Looking back, it's so cute. But
it is. But I can't imagine what you were thinking.
It really threw me into like a 4-year depression. And
I couldn't imagine. Like,
yeah, because I don't know, we were and growing up, I feel like with parents, we all look at our parents and we're like, oh, well, you should have done this, you know? And like, now that I'm a parent, I'm like, oh God, so paranoid about every move that I make. But we were raised to like, you know, we want to be proud of our accomplishments. We want to be proud that we're in all of these programs, want to be proud that we get good grades. So when I failed, and then I failed even more because I was depressed, it was just like this. And with hormones, if you have teenagers, listeners, they're crazy. And I'm telling you, they can't really help it because everything going on hormonally. So that was a very, very challenging time, but I'm not sure how we got on that. I'm sorry.
No, I think that's great.
I don't remember, but
I wanted to talk about childhood trauma because when you talk about trauma, like just the definition is so broad. But then I think childhood trauma in general, like when you hear that, the first thing that came to my mind was sexual assault.
Yeah.
You know, things like that damaging. But it can be as little as getting in trouble at school.
Yeah. Or a conversation.
Yes. Yes. And so I think we need to kind of open up and recognize that a little bit more. Like, childhood trauma does not need to be this bad, secretive word.
Right.
Like, it can be something as little as a child going through their parents' divorce. It could be as little
traumatic.
as even like a brother or sister being born. I mean, that's a good trauma to have, you know, but I mean, and
it's a change.
It is. And that can be very traumatic, you know?
Exactly.
So like childhood trauma, I can't imagine anybody not having childhood trauma.
Right.
You know, and we just need to, we need to recognize that word and not let it be so taboo.
Exactly. And
it needs to be something we talk about. No,
therapy is not a dirty word. Childhood abuse or childhood sexual assault or childhood trauma in general, they're extremely uncomfortable because we're talking about what makes you who you are. So we start when someone goes into therapy or into these practices that might, you know, make them look to their inner child. It's very, you know, it's really, really hard because it feels like you're just going to unravel everything. You're just going to unravel everything. And then you're not going to even know who you are anymore. Because then you're like having to think back like, oh, is that how I remember it? So childhood trauma is a very, very big thing. And I think that what's really interesting, I'm glad that you bring up, because Zabi's training specifically was for sexual assault. So I can teach trauma-informed yoga. I'm good. Her training specific provided a lot of data and a lot of tools for sexual assault victims. And going into the training, I was like, oh, I don't have any sexual assault trauma. Like there's been a lot of situations where I've been groped that was inappropriate.
Oh my gosh.
Just being a woman, let's just talk about it. If you're a woman, and some men, I'm not going to generalize, obviously, but chances are you have some sort of little tiny, some sort of sexual trauma. Even of just being catcalled, guys. The first time I was really catcalled and followed by someone was in White Center, Seattle, West Seattle.
I can only imagine.
13. Oh God. I don't know why they let me walk to the store alone. They let me walk like 2 miles to go to the Dollar General. I'm like, Grandma, what were you thinking?
Okay.
This ain't 1976 no more.
It's definitely a different world now, because I don't think if you you see a child out in Seattle, like, you are calling the cops, because that's not a good place.
A lot of things have changed, and I want to have a conversation with you about the differences. But
I could only imagine.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was followed when I was like, God, no, I had to have been about 15 at this time. Followed, and this man assumed that I was working the street basically, and followed me. Yes, I had to avoid him. So this is just as a child. I mean, I'm a teenager, so I'm like going to drive soon, but as a child, I mean, and I know that every woman, every girl has a situation like that. So that is one. But going to this training, I didn't really have like a specific event that I was like tied to. Like, I didn't think of anything. And then, but as Juliet got older, I started having repressed memories come up.
Oh my gosh. I was just talking to my husband about this. Whereas I was a child, and I had this dream of when I was a child, and it was so vivid. I'm like, wow. And I had told my mom about it, and she's like, that really happened. And I was like, what? And I was,
oh my goodness,
me and my husband, we've talked about this several times before. Like, I am that type of person where I really, and it's not a good quality to have at all, but like, I don't like bad things to happen. So like, I put a twist on things, and now as I'm remembering them, I'm just like, girl, what are you thinking? Like, with the sexual assault thing, like, for the longest time, I'm like, I've never been through sexual assault. Like, that's not a thing. Right. And then I remembered back when I was 16 years old, I was working at a nursing home, and the maintenance guy that worked there had pinned me up against a wall and was touching me. And I was so scared. And the nurses there, I was only 16, and I felt gross, like it was me, like it was all my fault. Like, what did I do? And I told one of my nurses there that I was so close with, and she was like, hell no. And she took me to like the manager and my bosses, and it ended up being this big thing, and he got immediately fired. And good. And the whole entire time I kept thinking, like, what have I just done? I ruined this guy's life. And then I had to go home and like tell my mom about this. And I was just like, like all this stuff. And I didn't realize how much that was like sexual harassment. And when I had thought about it, and I was like, oh, this isn't that big of a deal.
Right.
That was my thought process. Like, looking back on it, I'm like, oh, like, you were fine. Like, they got fired. And then I'm like, slow down. Like, you're 16 years old, and you are like, that's just unreal. Like, that's not okay, And I filed it away as something that was so irrelevant. Yes. Like, I belittled the issue so that way I could deal with it.
Exactly. Not looking it in the face means that you don't have to deal with it.
Exactly. And I can't tell you how many things I've put past, or I've just completely forgot about. And then I I journal, and I do these things, and transcendental meditation, and I'm just like, I'm
snap
fucked up.
Right. You're like, I gotta pull out that box, and I gotta look at it. That's exactly. And that's such a normal, and like, I posted about that recently, and people commented like, I minimize my trauma a lot. It's not as bad as going to this or that. But once you learn that that's how most people cope, like, it's literally just how the brain works. Like, we all know that there's things that happen to us when we were like 4, maybe 6 or younger. Even sometimes if you're older when your trauma happens, you can forget whole parts of your childhood. A lot of people who have childhood trauma forget, or maybe even at 16 years old, when that happened to you, it's possible that your memory is super spotty of that time.
Yeah.
Like you might not even, or maybe before, maybe after, there might be certain parts that mess with your memory. But yeah, it's a really common way to cope with things, kind of locking them away. And that same thing happened to me. It was so far behind me, like I was like maybe 5, maybe 6. I'm still unclear on when things happened to me, but it wasn't until I was holding this beautiful baby and I was learning about how I'm going to keep her safe and what that means, that all of these, and also doing the work. Like you said, there's, going to therapy, trying to figure out what makes you you, and how to cope with things. You kind of just start to realize like, oh, I really stuck that away. Like I really put that away. I haven't thought about that in a long time. Or what was weird is I had talked to people about it, but for some reason, when it came down to it, I wasn't even thinking of it. And then now,
it's like you're talking about a different person. Like you don't even recognize that person,
Right. Which is like some people might say like, well, that's dissociation, but I think that's like a way more, I think that word gets a little carried away, but there's a difference. There is a significant difference, but yeah, I started, and that became really uncontrollable. And that's how I actually started going to therapy. So I was teaching my classes just as regular. I had tried a couple therapists. This area is really hard to find someone. There's not necessarily a lot of options, I guess you could say. Right. So, me being very specific and needing a lot of specific, I need someone who has domestic violence. I need someone who has trust issues with pharmaceutical things. I need a very different kind of person. I did find somebody, and I do enjoy her a lot. Good. But yeah. And a routine is really important, I think, when people get into therapy, because once you get out of routine, it's like, oh, well, I mean, it's just been, and this is me right now, it's just been a month. So like,
do I need to go back? I'm coping okay.
Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
No, and then I get there and I'm like, yo, I didn't even realize how stressed I was. But yeah, so having those repressed memories come up this last year was really challenging. And I don't think that people really understand what that means. So I'm going to kind of explain at least my experience of it, if that's okay. So basically, I would just be doing things sometimes. I mean, there was one time where Matt had to suck the boogers out of Juliet's nose. And her crying and me knowing that she was being restrained, even though it's for her, like, we need to get the boogers out.
Right. Yeah. She needs to breathe.
And we weren't hurting her by any means, but just the fact that she felt helpless and that she was crying, it honestly, out of nowhere, like literally brought up a traumatic memory for me where I may have been feeling that same way. And that really surprised me because nothing else was going on. It was just my kid getting her nose sucked. That's it. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking about this horrible thing that happened to me as a child.
Oh my gosh.
Very, very interesting. And then it started to creep in more during meditation, leading meditation at the end of class. I just start seeing images. So for me, that's what it's been. It's been spotty images and I can't really see anything. I go to a wonderful Reiki, energetic light worker, amazing person. Her name is Laura Steffensmeyer, Sun Meets Moon Healing here in Fort Madison. And I was going through like a past life journey meditation with her, and I started seeing things. And thankfully, I know what it means, and I know how to calm myself. So that's one thing that my classes kind of work on helping people, because that's one thing that I do kind of get some messages about is how to handle that. So, and traumatic flashbacks might be something different for you. That's the thing about psychology is that everything is interchangeable. So like, it's important to keep that in mind too. So
yeah, there are some really good nuggets there. One thing I want to address real quick on my end of things, well, just kind of in broad, we talked a little bit about therapy there, and I just want to give some resources. So I have a lot of military spouse listening. So any military spouse that needs therapy, there is a great resource called Military One Resource. Or Military One Source. You can Google it. They'll give you a phone number. You get 12 free sessions of therapy for each problem. So if you have multiple problems, they will continue seeing you. And if need be, you can get a TRICARE referral for free. So another great resource I want to say is Dr. Ed Esselman. He's in Quincy, Illinois. So if you're in Iowa area, He is a great counselor who I saw. Do you have any resources in Iowa for friends?
Yes. Okay. So once I was able to find somebody that I felt like if in all vulnerability, I've had therapists and I kind of just felt like they were judging me. I understand that is part of a therapist's job to evaluate you. And maybe that's my own. I feel like when we first get into a chair, that's when our first little insecurities come up and they're like, oh, this is what I have to deal with. I have to make sure I find a therapist that really works for these insecurities. So I did find one and I love her to pieces. She's very, very, she's smiley, but she's not too bubbly. She's down to earth. And she is actually honest and real. And I really, really appreciate that because I feel like sometimes in therapy, we just kind of have to we're just talking, which is good, but it's also nice to have someone who can you can talk with. So that's Courtney Fox at Counseling Associates in Fort Madison. I really, really like her. They do take, I think Blue Cross Blue Shield. They take state. And there's tons of other resources and great counselors in there. There are trauma therapists in Burlington. Unfortunately, I am not able to get in with them because they do not take my insurance, but there are several in Burlington, which if you have trauma or you think you might have it and you're nervous, I don't want to go to a trauma therapist right away. Go to a regular therapist first. Go to a regular therapist. Get used to going outside, going to a place every week or every other week, getting used to talking about your things a little bit. That was kind of my plan with Courtney. And then I realized that there is no trauma therapist in this area that I could see. So I have to find one in Iowa City, but that's okay. Cause then I'll have an excuse to leave and go to the city. So,
and there's Trader Joe's in Iowa City.
I need to go there and I need to explore.
You'll love it.
I know that it's everything I need out there.
Yes. So, and then real quick with everything you just said, I want to just kind of reassure people that therapy can be whatever it is you want or need it to be. And if your therapist is not willing to work on you on that level, find another therapist. I had that experience in Virginia Beach and it almost put a bad taste in my mouth where she just wanted to focus on one issue. And I'm just like, but that's not what I want to talk about today. So I don't have to, and it's my choice. It's my therapy. So just know that those are a good therapist is going to support you on that. I remember seeing Dr. Esselman in Quincy, and the session started out talking about a situation that had been going on. And then I completely just shifted back a totally different direction and started talking about something totally different. And I mean, he did try to reel me back and be like, hey, were you wanting to finish that? Or do you want to go on to something else? Just to kind of remind me and see where I'm at and where I want to work on. But it was great timing when I was like, okay, wait, I am completely done with that. I want to go to something else. And, they supported me on that. So just finding someone that will help you work through your problems and then, kind of really in when you need real. You're in charge the whole time. So just that's something super, super important to remember.
Yes. And on that note, if you can already tell the therapist when you get there why you want to go to therapy, you'll save yourself a lot of time. So if you're thinking about going, start thinking about it. Because I kept that lady waiting for 2 weeks. I was like, I don't know what I want to learn. So if you can think about that beforehand, you save yourself a lot of time,
I
guys.
love that. And I think one thing I know for me, I have so much stuff I feel like that I kind of bounce, but it feels good for me. And so I'm okay with that. But for other people, if you want to have a list of items, just know that that person, your therapist, is not there to judge you.
Correct.
You're paying them to help you.
To some extent, exactly. To some extent, they work for you in a way, they're providing you a service. But I've been in some groups, and I'll wrap this up quickly. But I'm in some CPTSD groups or healing from narcissists. Sometimes these women post that they have these terrible experiences with their therapist, where the therapist will literally yell at them. And I just want, and I hope it's not real because it's the internet world, but I'd hate to think that people would lie about that. So if in case anyone ever doubts it, it's never okay. I just want to clarify that because there are actually people who go and continue to see therapists who are unfortunately not in the right position to care for you. Kind of tied into also when it comes to doctors, had I just done a little bit more research about what psychiatric medication actually is, when I was seeing that family doctor, I would have gone to someone qualified And that probably would have changed my outcome a little bit differently. All is good now, but just some advice from Sarah and Alexis on how to, navigate therapy and stuff.
I love it. I love it. And one other quick thing. Did I lose it? Oh, yes. I got it. Therapy is not just, how do you feel about that? Or how does that make you feel? It's so much more than that. And like, that's kind of the stigma that I think it gets. And it's just that's not accurate. And if you've seen a therapist in the past and you didn't get what you want or needed from it, it's okay to try someone else. Even if therapy has a bad taste in your mouth, I swear everybody needs therapy. Even healthy people need therapy. Even people whose lives are like almost 80% perfection, they still need therapy. Like, even if you think you don't need therapy, if you think you have no childhood trauma, your life is great, you're happy all the time, you still need therapy. You just need someone to check in with and be like, hey, like, I'm going through X, Y, and Z. This is how I'm handling it. Like, just someone to chat there with you who is completely unbiased. And that's how I like to say it. Like, they're not on your side, but they're not on another person's side. It doesn't matter whose side, it's just, they're just there to listen and to support what you're going through. Completely
it's
unbiased.
That space.
Yeah.
It's that space. It's that you can walk in somewhere and hopefully over a period of time, you can feel like,
yes,
okay, I can handle, like, I'm ready to talk about this. I'm ready to sit with this. And that's kind of like what, bringing it all back together, like, that's kind of what trauma-informed yoga is essentially anyone in this field, I mean, in energy work, in healthcare, in yoga, in spiritual things, there's a surprising amount of people who are, and I think the message should be, most of the people in the world want to live in this world of love and kindness. And hopefully all of your listeners not only have spaces that they can go and let those layers off, where they can really go and let themselves breathe. But hopefully if there's any sort of ideas that they have about how to create those spaces for other people in an online platform, in a real life platform, and just in conversations, I think that that's really important. And that's the overall message.
I love it. I love it so much. And if anybody is needing a safe place in Iowa, definitely attend one of Alexis's yoga classes, whether it's trauma-informed or whether it's just a regular class. It's a safe place for you to let go of anything that you're carrying. And I think that's really important to know that maybe you don't want to start therapy yet, and that's okay, but start with yoga, start with movement. It feels good.
Yes. Start with anything that brings awareness to your breath. Start with anything that brings awareness to how you're feeling. So much of what I feel like, and I know that you're in on this too, what people need to learn is mindfulness. We just need to learn how to check in with ourselves. And then once we can check in with ourselves and realize that we are worthy and that we are deserving, we can start to see how everyone else also should check in with themselves and how everyone else is also worthy and deserving. So having
it's
that,
okay.
having
it's
that
okay
space.
not to be okay at the moment. It's okay to check in with yourself and know that it doesn't need to be this level of perfection every time.
Yes, and everything is temporary, and that's the bittersweet beauty of things, is that it's temporary.
I love it. I love it. Well, I have time to ask you one super fun question.
Yay!
Okay. To end this a little bit lighter.
Okay.
I know. That was some heavy stuff.
I know. Yeah.
I was not expecting it to get that way, but I love it. I think it was like everything that needed to be out there. So I'm happy with it.
Thank you.
Okay. What is one thing that people may not know about you, but you would want them to know about you?
Oh God. I was like, I hope she doesn't ask that question.
Oh, even better, man. I know
that's how the world works, baby. That's how growth works. What is one thing that I wish people knew? Oh God. All I can think about, and this is so corny, and I want to say I'm done fighting being the corny hippie woman that I am, because I'm just going to do it.
Do it.
There's no stopping it. We have to do it.
Do it.
I would say that the one thing that I want people to know is that, and I was just thinking of this moment I had with a dance kid. She was crying. And I'm like, if only you understood how much I love you, if only you understood how much I love you. Like you would not be hung up about this. Like if you could see how freaking wonderful you are, then like your outlook might be different on yourself. That's like the overall highest level of message that I could think of, is that everyone, and I'm one of these people. That's the message. I'm one of these people. If you're one of these people too, then that's amazing. The majority of people want to spread and live in love and kindness.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important. I hope that answers your question.
I think that's there. Perfection.
What should people know? That's what people should know. I want people to know that about me. I want people to see that in me. Of course, I want to present myself as real and honest, and but also that, you know, I'm one of those people that believes that. So if you believe that too, then let's all get together, because it's a world that can be filled with love and kindness, and that would be amazing.
Yeah, I feel like if we came together, we could really drown out all the hate. Like, I mean, there's a lot of bad shit in the world.
Dude, it's hard,
like,
man.
I don't see it all the time. Like
right.
And it's not because I have my blinders on, but it's because I choose like
stay in
not
your lane.
to put my focus on that. Like, why?
You stay in your lane. Yeah.
Exactly. But real quick, when you said that that's the one thing you want everybody to know, I really loved that you ended with that, because as I was going through these things, it actually was when I came back here. I was going through these things with, like, you know, a small town world and drama that was happening. I kept thinking of like the people that I was like, oh my gosh, like, are they going to choose sides? And I almost had a little worry with you. I was like, oh my God, I hope Alexis doesn't hate me. And then I was like, wait, it's Alexis. Like, never mind. Like, she loves me. Like, even if she hears what Sally has to say about me, she's going to be like, oh, okay, cool. All right. Love you, Sarah. Like it's not going to be
nothing changes
hate.
it.
Like, it's not, you know, no judgment. And I think that's something that's really beautiful. And like, I love what you said there. And I want to kind of put that out there too. Like, I don't care if Sally has something to say about, you know, Susie. I'm still going to love Sally, and I'm still going to love Susie, because that's not my business.
And at the end of the day, it's tolerance.
Yeah, it is.
It's tolerance and humility. It's humility, and it's one of its most precious forms. That's awesome.
I love it.
Yeah.
So if people wanted to find out more about you, more about your yoga classes, and trauma-informed yoga, kids yoga, all that kind of stuff, where can they find you?
So Now and Zen, it's now with the little sign, ampersand, and Zen, Zen yoga. It's based out of Fort Madison. That's me on Facebook. You can also add me on Facebook or follow or whatever, Alexis Taryn, Taryn. My studio page is Velocity Dance and Tumbling. I, myself, and Angel, our page is Moms of Mindfulness on Facebook. So that'll have, if you have a kid and you want to do mindfulness activities and grounding, if you want more natural solutions to parenting, that'll kind of be where it's at. And Facebook is kind of just where I do everything right now. I might be dipping my toes in a podcast soon, which obviously, Sarah, you will be on like all the time, if that's okay.
Love it.
So yeah, mainly the book, Facebook, Alexis Taryn, or Now and Zen Yoga.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sounds fun. Perfect.
Yes.
So I will link all those different pages and platforms you can find her in today's show notes. And is there anything you want to end with?
I'm just so thankful. I'm just so thankful for the opportunity. And one thing that's been really on my heart lately is I just can't get over how much my life changed me personally within the last couple of years. And anyone who's gone through similar experiences to me, and anyone who's gone through their own things, knows that sometimes it's really hard to hang on. It's really hard to think about living to see another day sometimes. So not to be heavy, but if you were waiting for a sign to hold on, if you're waiting for a sign to hold on, if you thought like, nope, this is it for me, I'm done, you're not. You're not done. You need to share your story. You need to go out and connect with people someday. Heal, and then share and share and share, because the world needs you. and the world needs your heart, and the world needs your experiences. And that is the message. So
that is beautiful. Well, I thank you so much for being on my podcast today. You are the best.
Thank
All the
you.
love in the world.
Thank you.
Wow. What an amazing episode, full of so many awesome little nuggets that Alexis slipped in there. So I know this is definitely one of the longest podcasts that I have. I just really didn't have the heart in me to cut anything out. I think everything that we talked about really needed to be said and heard. And I just really hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, as you know, we always end with affirmations, and Alexis actually had some that she wanted me to pass along to you guys today. So here we go. I am supported in my healing. My body is a high-functioning, totally capable self-healing machine that I am blessed to look after. I believe in myself. I believe in the power of my thoughts. My deepest turmoil led me to my most infinite wisdom. I am enough, just as I am in this moment. I forgive the old me. I love myself. All right, guys, I hope you really enjoyed this episode. I had so much fun recording this with Alexis, and she truly is one of my favorite people in this world. Just her energy is so authentic, and it's so fun to be around. So if you have not taken one of her yoga classes yet and you're in the good old Southeast Iowa, you should go ahead and find her on Facebook and definitely check out a class. I loved it. I absolutely loved all of her classes. And if you guys have any suggestions or any concerns or anything, feel free to message me. You guys know where to find me, and check out today's show notes on where you can find Alexis. Thank you guys so much for listening. Bye.